In this video, I'm going to share with you the 3 biggest mistakes I see when people are using Google local service ads. By the end of this video, you're going to see what those 3 mistakes are, how to avoid them, and you'll stop losing customers to your competitors. Now, if you want to avoid making those mistakes yourself or just don't have the time to get and set up your Google local service ads, I do this for quite a few companies now. So you can click the link below in the description of this video, book a call with my team, and we'll walk you through step by step of how to get yourself set up with local service ads and start getting more customers. All right, let's go ahead and dive into those 3 biggest mistakes you can avoid with Google local service ads. Mistake number 1, not having enough availability or not having enough hours of operation for your business. Now, I know a lot of people are probably thinking when I say that, well, I'm only open from this set time to that set time. And that can be true. What I would say though is you got to differentiate yourself from your competitors because more likely than not, your competitors are thinking the same thing. So as an example, if you are open from 9 to 5, that is probably one of the busier times of days that people are going to have available for their service hours. So what I'd recommend is if you were a contractor and say you're available from, let's just say 9 to 5, but say like you're up and available and can take phone calls earlier and or later, I would open up those service hours and you might, instead of being, fighting for the top 3 spots in the Google Guaranteed or Google Local Service Ad listings, you might end up being, the top 1 or 2 options during hours that your competitors aren't even thinking of. So let me go ahead and show you an example of that now. All right, so this is a tow truck company that I just onboarded. And as you can see to the left here is their service areas. And then to the right here is their availability hours. So this client, they're open a lot because obviously people that, need towing services, need them pretty frequently or can happen at most hours. This current client is a little bit of a smaller business, so they don't have availability for 24/7, but after talking with him, he was thinking of maybe offering like 12 hours during the day. As you can see here, he has more like 15 now, 14 to 15 hours available with the current setup because he and his team aren't necessarily like available at the second or available right away necessarily, but they can take a phone call and give someone a quote, which is sometimes in the towing industry what can happen a lot. And really all service-based, companies, contractors, things like that. A lot of times the first phone call isn't like, I need you to come right this second necessarily. Even the example of a towing with this client. So that's what we did here is we opened up a lot of availability. So really he's available from 10 a.m. Or from like 10 a.m. to like 1 a.m. pretty much every single day. So although he's not like on the road, he can give someone a quote. And if they need it, he's like, I'll hop in the truck and I'll head over there. So this is a good example of opening up your service hours because, again, maybe your competitors aren't going to be able to handle that. Now I'm going to show you an example of another client here. This is a roofing client. And so they do have limited availability just because they can't have people taking the phone calls all the time. They're, again, another kind of smaller scale company here. And so they don't have people. This is basically when they can actually accept phone calls. And this is like me really pressing them for, opening things up as well. So again, that is mistake number 1 that I see is not having enough business hours available to take phone calls and going up against too much of your competition with the local service ads. Mistake number 2, going along the lines of mistake number 1, not having enough business hours available for people to call you. The biggest mistake I see is people not actually answering the phone. You got to answer the phone. I don't know how else to say it. You got to be able to answer the phone. I personally, for my clients, have them set up in a CRM system. So they are alerted when someone is calling. And so they know exactly when a Google LSA or Google Guaranteed phone call is coming in. Because 1, you've gone through the application process. You've gotten approved with Google. You've gotten it all set up. Now you got people who want your service calling you. This isn't, a newly notification from a social media ad, and then you got to call them when you can. This is like a hot lead coming in that said, I need this service. I want to call you. So you got to answer. Google records phone calls unless you're in the medical industry. So if they see people calling and you don't answer, they're going to bump you down. And then you could go from being the top 1, 2 people getting multiple phone calls a day to like getting a call or 2 per week every couple weeks. Like it's the biggest mistake that I see is people just not answering the phone. And if you're a service industry, it's so worth it to have a dedicated person to answer the phone. There's even like AI methods for answering phone calls these days too. So it's just so important. I'm going to show you an example of that as well. So this is my towing client. We just actually got him approved and fully Google guaranteed here in the last couple weeks. He took a few days off for the Thanksgiving and Christmas break. But as you can see, he's getting basically a phone call per day since we turned the ads back on December 5th. And so he's really good about answering the calls, so Google's going to keep feeding him. Again, I can't stress this enough. If you are not able to answer the calls, you need to have a dedicated person to do that. It can be the difference between you continually getting multiple calls a day to potentially going down the list of available options and then not being charged at all. Again, mistake number 2 that you can avoid is making sure you answer your phone call within the first 30 seconds. Because what I'm going to tell you is if you don't answer the call and it's 30 seconds long, you're still charged for that. So you're still charged for people that are calling you if the call is longer than 30 minutes. So if they call and leave you a voicemail, more likely than not, that's going to be at least 30 seconds long. You're still charged for that. And then now you have to call them back. But now there's already a lack of trust because you haven't answered their phone call when they, needed you and or really wanted to speak with you right then and there. People are busy. I know you as business owners are busy. Have someone dedicated to answer the phone if it cannot be yourself. Mistake number 3 to avoid, setting your budget too low. With most advertising companies like Google Ads, social media marketing, even, Google local service ads, you're going to have to set a budget, whether it be daily, weekly, monthly, what have you. The biggest mistake I see is people underestimate the budget they're willing to use on Google local service ads. It has been my experience and mine alone, so I'm speaking for myself here, that a lot of times Google will not spend the full budget. So what I prefer to do is the automated bidding or maximizing leads option under Google local service ads. And it basically just says, I want as many leads and or calls and messages as I can get. But what people will do is they'll say, oh, I only want to spend, $1,000. So I want to do $250 per week. Most of the time, Google's going to spend less than that. Now, are there scenarios where it can be the full amount? Yes, it can. But the nice thing is with Google local service ads, it literally is a toggle on and toggle off option. So it's very easy to pause stuff and then resume when you want to. So what I always tell people to do is to overestimate sometimes 2 to 3 times what the ad spend budget they're willing to do is. Because 1, if you get a lot of good stuff in and you like it, you can always increase your budget. Or 2, say you blow your budget in the first couple weeks of the month, you can just pause it and then resume later. But ideally, you're going to be getting so many good quality phone calls coming in of people that want your service and are willing to call you directly that you are able to, keep things going as it is. So I'm going to show you an example of that now. Okay, so this is my roofing client. And as you can see, I have here under the average weekly budget, $15,000. Now, this client is willing to spend basically whatever is needed to get as many calls and inbound, jobs as possible. So they're really willing to spend like 5 to 10 grand a week. We're in December, which is technically, or not technically, it's considered a slower time of year for roofing. I put it up to $15,000. And this was like yesterday I made this change because I said, you know what, things are kind of slow. I want to, bump the company up from being where the competition is. Let's see what they can do for, saying we want to spend $15,000 a week. Now, as you can see, in the previous 7 days, they've only had 2 phone calls. It's been a very slow time. So I'm going to probably give this another day or 2, and then I'll up the budget again and just see how things go. And again, I know people are like, oh my God, $15,000. Because I know I personally wouldn't want to spend that myself as a marketing company, but roofing is different because one good job could potentially be $10,000 to $50,000. So that's an example here. And so that is the third and final biggest mistake I see is to make sure that you or the company you have running your Google local service ads has a higher budget than usual, because it's super easy. All you got to do is come up here and you see your ad is on. I click this, it toggles over and it's off. And then say I want to turn this back on tomorrow, I click it, it toggles back on, bada bing, bada boom. And those are the 3 biggest mistakes I see with Google local service ads and how you can avoid them to make sure you are not losing customers to your competition. I mentioned before, but I run Google local service ads for a few companies now. So if you'd rather skip the trial and error and avoid some of the most common mistakes that I see, go ahead and click the link below in this description, schedule a call with my team, and we'd be happy to set you up and start getting more customers calling you, wanting your service right away. Now that you've watched this video, I want you to go ahead and click on the video that's popping up on the screen right now to talk more about how you can take your Google local service ads to the next level.